The Steelers, are fortunate that they got such good performances out of Benny Snell in the last two games. He had 98 yards at Cincinnati, he had 63 at Cleveland, 55 of them in the second half, and he really looked like he was up to the task. So that's good news for them, given the James Conner situation. It's not so easy without Juju, although they've gotten decent contributions from James Washington.
Maybe that's the kind of game that James Washington needed too, Gene. Caught all 4 targets, 111 yards. He didn't have a game like that. He hasn't had a game like that yet in his NFL career, and he made some quality catches too. Well,
sure. He's always been able to demonstrate that he can make a big play, and that his touchdown against Cleveland was a tremendous play. He showed great concentration on that. He was interfered with, but it didn't matter. I think James Washington has a really high ceiling, as it were. The rest of the receiving core is really kind of hit and miss, particularly with the tight ends. They've never really gotten to contribute too much this year, mostly, I suspect, because Ben has been out and he had a good chemistry with them.
Yeah, I don't think that they really skip a beat there with Benny Snell in there. Jalen Samuels is back to his role that was when James Conner was there. But Benny Snell is a good, powerful north-south runner, a guy that they need to maybe jumpstart this run game right now.
Yeah, and with him in there, they've kind of committed to it a little bit more. Now, granted, Cincinnati had a terrible run defense, but Cleveland did not. And the Steelers seem more patient with the run now that Benny Snell has improved so much.
All right, before we go out to the callers, I wanted to get your take on Devlin Hodges. There's duck mania going around, duck fever, everyone has it. But do you think this is a guy that can lead you to the playoffs, the way he played?
I don't know. He's very resourceful, but he is, again, so inexperienced that it's very much like the Mason Rudolph situation, where he just doesn't always know what he's seeing. He's made some bad plays. He's going to make some more bad plays. It's not the ideal way to get to the playoffs now.
The one play that scratched my head was, he lost 40 seconds on that third down call. He threw it away at the very end of the game instead of taking the sack.
The week before.
So those are plays, I think, experience.
Right.
You're not thinking of that you just do it. Let's go out to Pete on Squirrel Hill. What's up, Pete?
Hey, Richie. Rich, how are you tonight?
Good. Thanks for calling, Pete.
Hey, Rich, let me throw something your way. I could not understand, Rich, at the start of the NFL season, how the media made the Cleveland Browns the darling pick. I heard people saying in the media they have a great leader, a quarterback. Rich, what's that guy ever done? He's an idiot. A great leader is Mark Messier, not Baker Mayfield. Number 2, the choice is their head coach. What warranted Freddie Kitchen getting a job as a head coach in the NFL? What does his resume say? And number 3, an organization has been dysfunctional for 20 years at least. Why would you want to bring in that imbecile from the New York Giants, that Beckham Jr., in the fourth quarter of the game on Sunday, Rich, when the Steelers were trying to run out the clock up 7, they showed Beckham Jr. and his teammate on the bench on the sideline laughing, Rich. If you're trying to change a 20-year horrific culture, why would you bring in an imbecile like that? Thank you.
Hey, thanks a lot, Pete. You make some good points. Odell Beckham, he was probably a guy that was brought in to get some excitement around the Browns. There hasn't been any excitement around that organization in a long time. Similar to the Pirates. If you want to compare the Browns to the Pirates from NFL for Major League Baseball. But Gene, I remember talking on this show, and I think it was you and I thought the Browns were frauds. I didn't think that they were going to go and win the division like a lot of the national pundits did. I thought that they were going to have a tough time and have been lucky to be 7-9, and that's the direction that they're headed in.
Yeah, Pete, you always talk about the media like it's some kind of monolithic thing. It's not the way it works. In Pittsburgh, there was great skepticism about the Browns' chances top to bottom. But you're right, it wasn't everywhere. Vegas really liked the Browns, and a lot of national writers did too. I was always skeptical of them for some of the reasons that you cite, but it was not a media-wide endorsement of the Browns. That's not really fair.
Yeah, it isn't, and they have a lot of talent there. Don't get me wrong. They got 2 really good running backs. They got 2 really good receivers. Yeah. They got a good quarterback. They got a pretty good defense. They got a really good team. But they don't have that. They don't
haven't learned how to win yet.
exactly, and that's what I was getting to. And
Right.
you know, the one of the things you brought up, Freddie Kitchens, Pete. You know, I think one of the reasons he's in that place right now is because he gets along with Baker Mayfield. I did read that before the season started.
Yeah. And that was part of our Pittsburgh's skepticism anyway. Freddie Kitchens with no experience, and an offensive coordinator with no experience, and a defensive coordinator with no experience, and an organization that did not know how to win. So, I mean, I think we were on it. The national media was not.
Hey, Gene, sounds pretty familiar. What just happened today? The Pirates announced the guy with no experience to manage the team. So, you know, I know we're switching gears here, but the Pirates announced Derek Shelton as their guy. He said he's looked over the roster, that they're going to try to figure things out when the winter meetings happen. I don't expect big moves. I don't see this payroll going up because, you know, it seems like it's been their motto. It's been their saying. Each one of these guys gets hired and they say payroll doesn't matter, payroll doesn't matter. Well, I disagree. I think payroll matters. To a point, you got to get into the $100 million range, not the $60 million range, you know.
Well, the Braves signed Cole Hamels today to, I think, a 1-year, $18 million contract. The Phillies signed Zach Wheeler, I think, to a 4-year, $80 million contract. I'm not sure I have that entirely right.
I think it was 5 years, 100 or something.
You know,
that might have been an option.
Close to $20 million a year. I didn't see the Pirates mentioned in either of those stories, and until I see the Pirates mentioned in those kind of stories, nothing is going to change.
Yeah.
You know, I'll go to the press conference when they announce the new owner. How about that?
The one thing I do understand that maybe payroll doesn't matter if you do things right, but it doesn't matter when you
perfectly.
I think look, I think it matters, but it really matters when you have a $70 million payroll and you don't have a $100 million payroll, and even a $100 million payroll is at the bottom of the majors. I could maybe buy that argument that if you're spending between 95 and 125, that you could still really compete year in and year out. But if you're spending $60, $70 million, 80, whatever it is that the Pirates have been spending over the years, you just can't compete with that. I don't care what your farm system is. And the Pirates have to rebuild their farm system now, too. All right, we got to take a break. Back with more of your phone calls, some of your tweets coming up next. Stay right there.